The STL Bucket List Show is driven by Bommarito Automotive Group. Bommarito is Missouri's #1 car dealership, and they are proud to represent the #1 podcast in St. Louis, the STL Bucket List Show. We've personally purchased several vehicles from Bommarito, including our last one, which we recently just had another baby, so we had to upgrade to an SUV with third row seating. The entire team, John, Chuck, they all treated us like family. There's really nowhere else that we would buy a car in Missouri other than Bommarito Automotive Group. Enjoy the show.
If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune into the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home. Yeah.
St. Louis, we're back with another episode of the STL Bucket List Show, highlighting the people, places, and events that make St. Louis special. We couldn't do this show without our good friends over at Bommarito Automotive for driving this episode forward, and all of our other new partners that you'll hear throughout the episode. And we just can't thank you guys enough for continuing to listen. We've done this for 177 weeks in a row now, and we haven't missed a week. So we're really proud of that. But we have one of those people in the studio today that makes St. Louis special. Alexis, I just want to take a minute to talk about the things I like about you.
Oh, thanks.
So my wife and I really follow you. My wife is not somebody that loves Instagram influencers as much, because she's been in it and she's worked with me and she knows all the things, and she loves your content a lot. So I think that that's the best compliment. And she actually follows, she sends me stuff that you guys do, because when we met you, we didn't have kids, and now we have kids. So Alexis, I'll kind of give an intro. She was a former TV journalist, still in my eyes a journalist, but on social media, making content, family content, local St. Louis news, which is really cool. You're still doing the new stuff. New restaurants, a lot of foodie places, and a lot of family-friendly content. So Alexis, I just want to hear about your journey, because you just left the news. So let's start there. You left about a month ago now.
It's almost been 2 months. Actually, 2 months as we're recording this, which is crazy, because part of me feels like it's been a blink of an eye. I feel like I literally closed my eyes and June went away. And then part of me feels like it was just yesterday, because I did the news for so long. I was at KMOV for 10 years and doing journalism as a TV reporter for almost 15. So that was a huge chunk of my life. And I will say I've been surprised at how easily I did. I don't want to say move on, but in a way, I don't miss it as much as I thought I would. So that's weird. I miss the people. I loved the people I worked with at KMOV, and I loved, being in the community. But what I've sort of built as my post-news life, I'm still out in the community. I'm still meeting people. I'm still talking to people. I'm still interviewing people, still sharing stories, just in a different way. And it feels crazy, because I was talking to a friend this weekend, and I said, I'm very happy with the decision. It was a hard decision to make. I thought about it for almost a year. And now that I'm on the other side of making the decision, it was a really good move for me.
What is the one thing that you really look at, and what's the thing you're most grateful for now in post news?
Just the ability to make my own schedule. Right now I am definitely busier than I thought I would be. Probably a little too busy. I am not great at saying no, but that's a me problem. But even as busy as I am, I have the flexibility that I never had working for news. And when you think about news, we have newscasts that go on starting at 4 a.m. all the way up until 10 p.m. And so at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., if I'm on the news, I'm on the news. I'm not home making my kids dinner. And so that was a really hard part of being a journalist in a TV news setting, was just the lack of flexibility that I was looking for with my 2 little kids. So the ability right now to make my own schedule, even as busy as I am, I can still do things. I got up at 5:30 this morning to get some workout done. I stayed up till midnight last night to get some work done. But that gives me that time in the morning, so that when my sons wake up and they're like, let's play Legos at 6 a.m., I'm like, okay, we can do that. So that part has been the best thing I could have asked for.
And I think that's what's so special about it. Although I'm an entrepreneur myself too, and I have crazy stress and crazy like late nights, but like I've never missed a doctor's appointment with my daughters.
Yeah.
I've never missed really anything that was really actually important. I could make my way around it. I mean, there are like days today like where the kids are at the splash pad, which is like, okay, that's mom's on summer
Yeah.
break. Like I missed my daughter's first pool day, my little one, and I'm like, oh, like I could have took off, but like this is important. So it's like it's hard to find that balance, but I think you're doing a great job with it. And I think that it's cool to see you still going on the news. You still get a little bit, like you still get to see the people.
Exactly.
They're still like colleagues of yours in a way, like you're following them and you're kind of making content. But now what's so super special is like you can do brand partnerships, but also like you can do content that maybe you couldn't do on the news.
Yeah.
And like
I get to choose the stories that I want to tell and choose the stories that I want to share on social media. And, you know, I keep saying like there are so many good journalists in the city that are digging into the hard news, that are sharing the big news stories that need to be shared in town.
Mhm.
And those are important and people need to see that. I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm going to share a little bit more positive news or, you know, continue pushing that there are still needs for tornado victims, things like that. Like there's just a plethora of stories to tell. And I'm excited to sort of pick and choose the ones that bring me joy right now.
Yeah. So when did you fall in love? So let's go back to your childhood. So you're from St. Louis, right?
From St. Louis, born and raised.
So you're from St. Louis. Walk us through kind of your childhood and like what led you into the world of journalism. I know you moved away for a little bit and then you found your way back to St. Louis right away, or did you have a little gap?
I was in so yeah, I didn't always want to do journalism. It wasn't actually something that I wasn't like, you know, I watched
A certain
people,
person,
you know, all of my childhood. Like I don't really actually have a memory of watching the news as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved theater. I loved public speaking. And that's when I went to USC out in California for school. I wanted to be an actress. That was sort of my goal.
There you go.
And my parents were like, okay, cool. Like, but we're going to get a degree in something that can get you a job. So really grateful for that because I got my majored in communication at first. And then my first semester kind of was looking for a way to get involved in college and discovered the TV station on campus was looking for volunteers. I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. So I volunteered there, absolutely loved it. Switched my major from communication to broadcast and digital journalism. And I truly fell in love. I loved everything about the newsroom atmosphere. We had a fantastic journalism program at USC. And I learned so much. I left college with way more experience than anybody straight out of college has. And I got my first job in Knoxville, Tennessee, working at the ABC station there. Really loved it. Knoxville was such a fun town. Great post-college town because it's a very college-y town. And I met some of my best friends there. We all worked crazy news schedules and were in, you know, away from our families and anyone that we ever knew. And I loved it. I told huge stories. I got really great opportunities to cover big events. It's also where I kind of like found a use of social media and using it.
What year was that?
I graduated in 2011 from college. So I graduated in December and then I started my first job in like February of, I guess that would have been 2012. And 2 weeks in, like a huge tornado hit. And it was like my first time like really being like, whoa, okay. Like I am like in the things that you see on the news. Like I am telling those stories. You see tornado damage on the TV, but most of the time you don't experience it yourself. And
That's
that was
crazy that you started that and you
I
almost
know,
ended with
it's
that. And you're
crazy.
still telling those stories.
The number of
too.
times, I mean, sadly, I've covered too many tornadoes
in
in my time as a journalist and hurricanes and floods and so many disasters.
First Community Credit Union is the official banking partner of STL Bucket List. They've been serving St. Louis families for 90 plus years with 40 plus local branches and over 400,000 members. From personal credit loans to mortgages to kids and teen accounts, they also have a partnership with the STL Blues. You see Louie here if you're watching on YouTube. We're proud to use First Community. I use it for my own family and my own business. We're excited for them to be the official banking partner of STL Bucket List.
And but anyway, I always tell people this story because I think it's like a good realization that even though you go to college for something, like you don't learn until you're like in it.
Of course.
And I got to that tornado scene and I was just like,
and you're like 23, 24 years old.
22 maybe. I was like, I have no idea what to do. And my photographer, Steve, at the time, he like literally looked at me. He's like, yes, you do. Like, we need to find somebody in charge. Like, we need to find the fire department, the police department, and figure out like what's going on, what information we need to get out to the public.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And I remember the next day, like, we're going back up and seeing the damage, like, in the daylight because the tornado hit, like, right at the end of the day. And already, like, CNN and ABC were showing up, and I was like, "Oh, wow, like, these are
Kinda
people that
starstruck.
I watch,"
Yeah.
And I just, got to work and told those stories, and the victims in that tornado, like, I still think about them. Like, I still think about the people who lost their lives. I still think about the family helped tow my car because I got my news car stuck in the mud that day.
Mm.
Like, they had just, like, lost their home, and they're like, "Yeah, we've got a tow truck, like, let me
We'll
help
help
you."
you.
Like,
Yeah.
that was Tennessee hospitality and, like, kindness right
Yeah.
there. But anyway, it was, like, a crazy start, but it literally never stopped. Like, that
Mhm.
was the rest of my next, like, essentially 15 years was
Mhm.
covering disasters and meeting people, and the disasters themselves kind of run together, but, like, the people don't. Like, I can
Mhm.
think about some of these people that I have met over the last, over a decade, and I still think about them, and some of them
Mhm.
I still stayed in touch with, and that was the best part about being a journalist, was meeting people in my community and helping share their stories.
Mhm. Yeah, that's super
Um,
special.
so yeah, I was in Knoxville for almost 3 years. When my contract was coming up, I was looking where I was gonna go. When you work in news, you generally kind of move on to the next markets. People are always like, "Oh, people are always leaving," and that's sort of the business. It's a very transitory business. You kind of keep moving up in market size if that's your goal. And so I was looking around. There weren't any job openings in St. Louis. And I actually think about this. This is funny because I was coming home for 4th of July weekend. So
Mhm.
interesting
Yeah.
timing. Coming home for 4th of July weekend, I had emailed the news directors at Channel 4 and Channel 5 and was like, "Hey, like, I'm a St. Louisan. I'm a journalist in Knoxville looking to make my next move. Like, I know you don't have any job openings, but, like, can I come introduce myself?" I never heard from Channel 5, but the news director at Channel 4 emailed me back, was like, "Yeah, hey, come on in." So, I was in town for the weekend, went to Channel 4, basically spent the day there, met some people. I had interned there when I was in college, so I knew several people that were still there, which was nice, and it
Mhm.
was kind of a good in. This is a good advice for anybody. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta, like, be aggressive. You gotta, like, send the email. You gotta make the phone call. Like, just because there's not a job opening doesn't mean there won't eventually be a job opening.
1000%.
And so I left that day. Actually, funny enough, there were storms happening because they were like, "Okay, so, like, the storms are coming. So, like, you gotta go. Like,
Yeah.
we got shows to put on." They're like, "We don't have any openings now, but, like, we'll stay in touch." And I had a couple months left on my contract, so I wasn't stressing yet. But
Mhm.
about a month later, Michael Brown was shot and killed in
Mm.
Ferguson, and they called me up about a week after the shooting and were like, "Hey, we have an immediate opening. Like, can you start now?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh,
I didn't even know that
yeah."
that yeah.
So, I mean, I got the call, like, I can, like, vividly I
So
remember
that
it
was,
so
like,
vividly. This was
late
August
14?
2014.
Yeah, late
Yeah,
14, yeah.
August 2014, and I went to my news director in Tennessee and was like, "Hey, so
I'm gone.
I'm gonna go." And they're like, "Well, you can't leave yet, like, we need you." And I'm like, "Okay, right, but, like, I don't know if you're watching the news, but, like, St. Louis is, like,
Needs me.
in the international spotlight. Like, this is my dream job. I gotta go." We negotiated. I ended up staying in Knoxville for another, like, 2 months. I left on, like, September 30th from Knoxville and started in St. Louis on October 1st. Like, I left on a Friday and started on a Monday.
Love that.
Just drove straight home. That was, like, the beauty of, like, moving back home. I just,
Yeah,
like,
he's like,
moved
"Hey,
back in
mom,
with
I'm
my
coming."
parents.
Yeah.
Was like, "I will find a place to live, but, like, I gotta work." And yeah, I mean, I remember my first day so vividly.
And you were right in Ferguson on Monday, like, you
My
were
first
talking.
day actually was a story about there was, like, an Ebola epidemic at the time,
I
in
think I remember
somewhere
that.
in the
I was a
country.
senior in high school in 14, and
I don't
I remember, like, Michael Brown, obviously, and then
and
I
there was
remember
something with
something
Ebola.
else. Yeah.
Oh, I remember this because in that morning meeting of that first day of work, I was like, "Oh, like, I wonder what some of our local hospitals are doing on the off chance that we have, like, a situation here." And they're like, "Great, you can do that story." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I interviewed SLU Hospital about their, like, pandemic protocols, which was then
Yeah.
ironic because then, like, fast forward years later with the COVID pandemic. So I did that story, and then, yeah, either day 2 or day 3, I was up in Ferguson covering protest.
Mm.
Because people forget that the protest lasted months and months
Oh, yeah.
in Ferguson, and people were protesting outside the police department for months, like, continuing to push that message of frustration.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I was out there, and that's, again, one of those stories that I feel grateful that I got a chance to cover in all aspects of it. And I will never forget the Missouri History Museum a couple of years ago had an exhibit about civil rights, and they had a portion of the exhibit was on Ferguson and Michael Brown's death. And I was like, wait, this is so weird. Like something I covered is already in a
Yeah.
museum.
And it'll be in books
And
soon
that
too.
was, that was just like one of those moments where it just like really hit me of like, yeah, like what I do, like what we do as journalists, like it matters. Like it
Mhm.
impacts things. We help share that story, especially as a local journalist when, the national media, ups and leaves, like we continue to tell those stories. Same with,
Mhm.
when a tornado happens, like
Yeah.
we just had in May, the national media put a spotlight on it and then they were gone. But
Of course.
it's going to be months, if not years of recovery in St. Louis from that tornado.
Mhm.
And that's where local news is so vital and important to continue telling those stories.
Yeah. I love that that seems like an aha moment when I talk about careers and like you were a young adult at that moment, like we all have that aha moment and like maybe that was the first day in Knoxville, obviously, like the
Mhm.
tornado, but then when you got back to St. Louis, you got to tell stories in your hometown. Your family was then able to tune in and they
Yeah.
didn't have to like catch the interview
Yeah.
later. I'm sure that they,
Oh my God. It was like a huge thing. Like my mom, like never missed like a newscast like, for
yeah,
10 years. Like, I mean, same with my dad. Like it brought them so much joy. Like, I
yeah,
think they were the most sad when I said I was leaving the news.
yeah.
Cause they're like, wait, what?
They're like,
It's
wait, I
gonna
have
be
to like make an Instagram account and like I have
My
to
dad
look at
did. I made my dad an Instagram account. And he's like, well, people tell me they like watch your stuff on Instagram. So I made my dad an Instagram account.
my parents are the same way. They're like 65, 66 and like they made an Instagram account, but when I go on the news though, they think it's the coolest thing
Oh
in the
yeah.
world. Or they're
100%.
like friend will call them and be like, I saw Luke on the news and then but like to us like growing up in the social media era, and I thought the news was really cool. Like Rennie Knott, shout out Rennie Knott, the
Yeah.
first guy that ever did a
Love
story
Rennie.
on me. He
Yeah.
did my Lou series and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever." And I thought that was amazing. And then it's just so funny like how the impact of what TV does and it's
Mhm.
like this thing, but it's changing a little bit and obviously you're seeing that. But I want to talk a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah.
So you're launching a new podcast. It just
Yep.
came out on Monday.
Yep.
Called What's New in the Lou.
Mhm.
You had a podcast previously, and you
Did.
did a ton of episodes, so it's not new to you.
Yeah. So I started the Meet St. Louis podcast when
Yeah.
I was at KMOV for 8 years. We
Wow.
did I think at the end it was like 330 episodes. It was crazy.
That's
It
a
was
lot.
amazing. I
Yeah.
had so much fun. It was one of the things I was most sad to leave.
Mhm.
And so I knew post news that I wanted to do another podcast. Like I
Yeah.
love podcasting. I love that like ability to do a long form interview like
Right.
this, getting to really like hear the ins and outs of people's stories. And there's just so many interesting people in St. Louis. Like you
Yeah.
get it. Like
Yeah.
there's no shortage of people to talk to. And I think everybody has an interesting story to tell. Like everybody has a story to tell. You just like need to be able to like pull some of that story out of
Mhm.
them. So yeah, we just launched. It's called What's New in the Lou with Alexis Zotos. It's going to be similar to my old podcast in that I will be sharing the stories of people across St. Louis,
Mhm.
the new restaurant openings, the new businesses, the events that are happening.
Yeah.
Kind of giving that backstory of what's happening right now in St. Louis. It won't be like a news focused episode. There's lots of like great news podcasts and places to get news, but it will be sort of like your go-to guide for what's going on around town. Like
And I
the
love how it's
thing,
broken up with like an interview, but then also you're going to be sharing local events and
yes.
everything.
I mean, people are always asking me like, oh, what should we do? Like what's going on this weekend? And so I knew that was a component that I wanted to include was
Yeah.
like an event calendar at the end to like say, hey, here's some things put on your calendar. My hope with the podcast, which will drop on Mondays, is that it's the place that you listen to and you immediately are texting your friend and be like, oh my God, did you hear about this? This new restaurant's opening, or like, this is the event that we've got to put on our calendar this weekend. So
Yes.
that is my hope to sort of be that supplement to what I put out on my social media accounts in another form.
For over 150 years, SSM Health has been providing hope, healing, and opportunities to the St. Louis community. With over 40,000 employees across 4 states, they're not only delivering exceptional care, they're one of the region's largest employers, shaping the future of healthcare. We're proud to present SSM Health as the official healthcare partner of the STL Bucket List Show. If you've dreamed of a career where you're truly making a difference every day, SSM Health can help you take that to the next step. Learn more at their website in the link in the show notes. I love it. I love podcasting, and the reason why is like now that I have kids, these podcast episodes live on YouTube forever. And I've done 177 and our average
Which
episode's
is so
like
huge.
52 minutes. And we do long interviews. We've done like 2-hour interviews before, but
some people are really interesting.
I know we want to talk to people. Shout out Jason Bachman. We did a 3-hour and 30-minute interview with
Oh
him.
my God.
Yeah,
Jason's hilarious. I can
crazy.
actually, as I was like deleting old Instagram things from my old podcast stuff, like I just saw a picture of me and Jason. Jason was like one of the first people I interviewed on my old podcast. And he and I both look so different because we're like 8 years younger. But I remember going to his house to record it. And he's just got so many funny stories. Like I could see
crazy.
how you can talk to him.
Like think of your kids like being able to look back at your mom. Like they're going to think you're so cool. They're like, look at these old clips of mom on the news.
I know.
And then like your grandkids and great grandkids will be able to listen to these podcast episodes of you when you were 25, 26, 30,
Right.
35, 40. And like everything changes. Like me and Marissa did an episode when we got married. The day after we got married, we came and did an episode. And then we had one when we had our baby. We had Mila on the podcast with us. So like
That's so cute.
I wish I could spend more time on it. It's just one aspect of what we do. But like, I think that podcasting and local podcasting specifically of like being able to highlight these people, like you, your first episode with Rick, amazing story. That was amazing. But being able to highlight these people that maybe have never done a 45-minute interview before. Because I mentioned Rennie Knott. He did that interview with me, but they cut it into 60 seconds.
Sure, yeah.
So
I mean,
nobody really knew anything about me. They just cut all the good parts out.
Well,
or not the good parts out. They cut all the parts that are good for TV.
Yeah. Well, and that's the hard part. And that was sort of like the original reason that I started a podcast was that I was telling these stories on the news, but people have so much more to talk about than the minute and 30 seconds that you really have time for on a traditional news broadcast. And so I think that's why podcasting is incredible. And my goal is that, my episodes are going to be around 25, 30 minutes. Think of it as like your commute to work. It's the walk that you're doing with your dog. It's putting those couple of loads in of laundry. And you can like listen and learn a little bit more about your community and your city. Yes. And I think that people want to be in the know. They just don't always have the time. I would hear all the time like, oh, I don't watch the news. Like, I'm not home at 6 o'clock. I'm not home when the news is on. It's depressing. Like, I get it. But we as a society do want to be informed. I can see that through social media. Like, people are interested and engaged with the content about our community. People want to know what is happening. I mean, that's why people love your guys' weekly calendar on Instagram. Like people want to know like what's up around town.
Right.
So I think there's so many ways that we can continue sharing it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Super excited for the episodes.
Thank you.
I'm going to be tapped in. I listen to so many podcasts for inspiration. I love hearing interviews with people, and every interview is different. Like, this one you did with Rick, he's probably done 4 or 5 that are all different interviews.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked to Rick. I think it was like also year 1 of my old podcast.
Yeah.
And like life has changed some. I mean, he's grown his family, he's grown his business, and people just have so many interesting tidbits, especially I think St. Louis just has so many great entrepreneurs and people are doing really cool stuff that maybe the rest of the country isn't, they're not hip to it. They don't know what we're all doing here in St. Louis, but there's just so many cool stories to talk about and people to listen and learn from.
Let's talk about social media. So you built this amazing brand on social media, and what I'm so inspired by is you built it on you. So it's your brand, it's your face, and I know how much work goes into that. What are some of the challenges that you were on the news, but you're also posting, making your own content. Like, walk us through that, because I don't think a lot of people think you're just like posting something.
Yeah,
and it takes like 10 minutes because like they post like pictures from a wedding.
Yeah,
they just post it, but like you're putting like hours and hours and like 40 plus hours a week into this stuff, and this is your full-time job now. So walk us through, maybe not the challenges, but like what are some of the things that have been exciting to you being in social media full-time now? So
it's been really fun. I mean, I've always loved social media. Like, thinking back, I was kind of talking about how I started using social media early on in my news career as another fun story. So when I was in college, Instagram had like just come out. Again, I'm a little older. Facebook came out when I was in high school. I can remember my senior year getting the ability, you could like log on once you had a high school email address.
If you're over 16.
So I can like so vividly remember sitting in the library at Ladue High School and like people were like, have you heard about Facebook? Yeah, my sister's in college, like she has it or whatever, someone said. And I'm like, okay, I think we can finally get access to it. So I can remember that. And then in college, Instagram became a thing, I think. But I didn't have a
2010,
I didn't really
2011,
have a
yeah.
camera phone until I bought my first iPhone after college. Like,
Okay.
I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
We had digital cameras that we uploaded too many Facebook albums to Facebook.
Yes, I love
But
those.
Instagram wasn't really a thing until maybe later in college. Don't quote me on that. But Twitter
Yes.
was really big, and it was really big with journalism. And I remember my journalism professor making us all download Twitter in class and was like, hey, you guys need to be using this.
Mm-hmm.
So I started using it in college. I used it from a journalism perspective to like talk about stories, talk about things that were happening. And then when I went to get my first job, that was like a big thing. They were like, wow, we are impressed that you have this social media account. Like, we want to do more with Twitter as a news station. And I'm trying to think here. Okay, so we're talking 2012 here. Right. So 2012 would have been the election year. And my news station, as a company, they were like, hey, we want to cover the 2012 election from a social media perspective.
Yeah.
We want to send somebody to the Romney campaign and the Obama campaign just from a social media perspective. So they were like, Alexis, would you like to do that? And I said, absolutely.
You were just doing live tweets.
Yeah. So I was, again, 22 years old, and they flew me to Chicago to cover Barack Obama's election night.
Awesome.
Another coworker, she was a coworker that worked in Boston, I guess, at the time, or in New York, I don't remember. Anyway, she went to Boston to cover the Romney campaign. And they were like, hey, so like we don't like you to bring your camera. We just want you to bring your phone and give us like the behind the scenes of what it's like to be there on election night. I brought my camera just in case, because I like, knowing the news, they were going to be like, actually, we do want a news story, which they did. So I was glad I brought all my gear.
Yeah.
But here I was covering one of the biggest stories in the world as this young person, just doing it on my phone. Now, there was absolutely no Wi-Fi. We had a hotspot that did not work. So here I am trying to like tweet and post on social media, and I can't because there is no service. But like, I can just remember that being such a cool moment. I can still vividly remember being in sort of like the big media pen where everyone's waiting. And because I wasn't there as like a TV journalist, I didn't have like a spot on a riser. So all the like print, magazine, digital were like in this one area that you can't actually see the crowd or the stage. But there was this like split in the curtain. And I remember standing up on a chair next to like a journalist from somewhere else in the world. And we're both like standing on this chair. Like, I've got my little cell phone, and I'm like snapping a picture and like taking that moment to pause and be like, this is huge. Like, this is such a cool moment to be able to watch a president be elected, you know, Barack Obama standing up on that stage with his family, like accepting, you know, his reelection, like that,
in
like
Chicago, in his hometown.
in Chicago,
like
in his
energy.
hometown.
Yeah.
Like, it was so cool. And it was just one of those moments of like being a journalist that like, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, wait, did that happen? I'm
And
like, yeah,
social
it
media
did.
got you that
And social
opportunity
media got me that
back in
opportunity.
2012. Yeah.
Like, again, because nobody else had Twitter,
Yeah.
like people were not using Twitter really. They were
Yeah.
barely using Instagram. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at my Instagram photos from like that time, and that's when it was like heavy filters.
Of
and,
course.
you know,
Yeah.
a picture of my food, which is also still what my Instagram is,
Yeah.
but you know,
It's so
not a
funny.
good picture of the food.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I started social media then, and I just did it for fun. Even with Instagram, when I was in Knoxville, I would use it as a way to just like, share, like, here's a cool restaurant I went to, like, here's a fun bar.
Okay.
And got to St. Louis, similar. Like, I was covering a lot of sad news of St. Louis. Lots of bad things happen in St. Louis. We're not going to sugarcoat that. And that is what I covered predominantly when I worked as a journalist. And so, but I knew as somebody who lived and loved the city that there was a lot more to share that wasn't always making the news. And so that's what I did on social media. I had my Instagram account. I just would be posting pictures of places that I went out to eat. I've always been a foodie. And so that just like was all very organic. And fast forward several years, I would get reached out to by brands to, you know, kind of early on start doing like any kind of sponsored content, which was not something I could do when I worked for the news station.
Yeah.
So it was just something that I did for fun.
Yeah.
And I started putting more effort into it when I realized like this is a way to connect with my community on a larger scale. I don't really remember when the shift started happening. I would say probably once I started having kids and posting like a lot more like mom content and family content that I would start, and honestly, a lot of food content too, but like a lot of people would start saying, instead of like, oh, you're Alexis from the news, be like, oh, you're Alexis. I love following you on Instagram.
Yes.
Like there was like a significant, like I can like really see where that shift started happening in the last couple of years. And I started just putting a lot more effort towards it.
Yeah.
I would think about my content more organically. I would think about how to do it more strategically. And then in the last year and a half, when I started making this thought in my brain of like, okay, maybe news is not forever for me. Maybe I do want to try something different. Social media is where people are consuming their content, whether it's their news, their food restaurant reviews, the events that they're getting
What
that
they
on
buy for
social
their
media.
kids.
Like what they buy. I mean,
Yeah.
social media is going to change, but like it's always going to be there. Like it is going to be a constant in our life. It is where advertising dollars are spent. It is where marketing is happening. It is where we are building a community online, and then that translates into the real world community. So I started being a lot more strategic and then realizing that I could make a job out of social media and really thinking about like, okay, like how would I do it? Like, could I afford like you doing social media? Cause like, I didn't know what the concept of the like, cause I had never like really even like entertained the idea of getting paid for social media because at the time I couldn't. So when I started talking to my husband about like, I think I might leave news, like, here's what I think I might do. Like, I think I'll start a new podcast. Like, I think I can make money off of social media. And my husband, who has no social media, like zero.
He's like, you're out of your mind.
He's like, okay, like, I don't know how you would do it, but like, I believe in you. Like, thankfully he's super supportive. And
that's great.
we talked about it and I said, okay, if we have to like be a lot more budget conscious for a while, like as I try to like figure out what I'm doing. And he's like, let's do it. Like he was my biggest cheerleader and I'm so grateful. And now I think he's like, whoa, okay. I didn't realize like how much you could do. So once I left KMOV, I really just like dove like head first into it. And it has been really busy. There's a lot of opportunities out there to do content creation for local businesses, for local organizations.
Yeah.
The reality is businesses like, take restaurants, for example. They are trying to run a restaurant. They do not want to make videos. You know this. Like, this is why you guys do such incredible work at Bucket List Creative. You guys make beautiful, amazing content for businesses who want to just focus on their business.
Take the guesswork out of it. They spend zero time on it.
Like we are social media people. We spend too much of our lives on our phone, but we enjoy it. Right. And so most people, they don't want to make, a reel or a TikTok, whereas like, I love to make TikToks. So that I think is the realization of what is out there. Like there are opportunities to be had, and businesses also need to realize like they need to be putting focus on their social media. Like if they don't want to be doing it, they got to pay somebody to do it because people are looking at your Instagram before they are looking at your website. Like if they want to see what kind of food you have, like they're going to your Instagram. And if you don't have anything on there, or if you have something that like doesn't look very great, like they're going to pick another restaurant. There's plenty of other options that are out there.
Looking for something light, crisp, and absolutely refreshing? Zwickle Light by Urban Chestnut is the official light beer of the STL Bucket List Show. It's less than 100 calories, and it's the perfect drink for summer. Enjoy a beer at the beer garden, in the Grove, or chilling at home in the backyard with your friends and family. This episode is sponsored by Upshot Coffee. 3 St. Louis area locations in Cottleville, Break Shop in St. Charles, and their new Hi-Fi location in Clayton. I personally use Upshot Coffee every day at my espresso machine at home, and I try to visit one of the shops at least once a week. They source the beans responsibly from local farms all across the world, and they take care of their staff, and they take care of the community. Let's get back to the show.
So it has been crazy. It has been a busy 2 months, and
you'll hone in, and you'll kind of figure out what brand deals you want to do, and then you'll start knowing your worth a little bit more. It's just hard to value it because like you're so used to working a salary job, and you just do the story when you get the story.
Totally.
And now you can tell the stories that you want, and it's so similar to what you were doing before, but now you have full creative control. And you can, like you said, you can do what you want when you want to an extent. Obviously, you have these brand deals with certain people and stuff like that, but the reason we noticed Instagram was in 2019, my wife and I, we were just dating, and she planned our whole entire vacation off Instagram. Yeah. And I wasn't in big, I was in a sales job, and I was like, oh, you just planned this off Instagram? Like you didn't use Google or Yelp for that? And then when I got back to St. Louis, I'm like, there's nobody, we lived in South City at the time. I'm like, there's nobody posting stuff for us that is 22 years old, that live on our own, that want to go out and drink, want to go and eat. like Explore St. Louis does a great job, but they're a tourism board.
Right. They're speaking to the
Yeah.
people that are visiting St.
Yes.
Louis, not necessarily always the people that live here.
So I'm like, there's a need for that. And like, we loved it. My wife's a writer and she loved writing. I liked content creation. So like, that's kind of the spinoff of what happened with STL Bucket List. And I think that what you talked about is key when it comes to influencers. And a lot of people listen to the show that are influencers, and a lot of them make content for them, but it's not about you.
Yeah.
Social is meant to be social.
Yeah.
You're posting content for other people because that's how it gets, that's how you actually build a community, is like, hey, when I make this post, is this for me because I want my picture to be out here, or I have an ego, or this and that, or is it for the moms that follow me?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if I'm doing it for them, and like our Jane is a 21 to 30-year-old woman.
Right.
And that's who 70% of our followers are between 21 and 35. They're all women. They're younger parents, but like, I don't know the parent data yet, but I know
it's
that
hard to like get that data.
Yeah, I can't get that data. But I know that they're women that like to go
anecdotally.
out and do things. So when an advertiser comes to us and they're like, hey, I have an event that I need to sell tickets for, okay, like that's our Jane, you know? And we want to change that. Like, we want to get more in the county. We want to get more in Illinois. We want to expand the map. There's 3 million people in St. Louis in the greater metro, 2.8 million. And we have 10% of those people right now. So it's like, how can we get more than that?
Well, and I think that also brings like an interesting point. Like, people think like, oh, is it like too saturated in St. Louis with social media and influencers or content creators, like however you want to brand yourself? But like, no, like, there are so many people out there.
Yep.
And I will say, like, it is fascinating to me when people stop me. Like, I know who like my general followers are. Like, mine are also like moms, women between 25 and like 45.
Yep.
But like at the Muni the other weekend, this couple in front of us, they were older. I don't want to guess their ages, but like, I'm going to go with 60s. And they're like, oh my God, we love your social media. We love your Instagram. We're always like, where should we go to eat? Like, let's see what Alexis is posting about. And I'm like, I love that.
That
Like,
gives me so much energy.
Right? Like, that's great. Like, and I do think about that when I'm posting. Like, okay, who am I posting this for? Like, who's going to get this information? Like, how is this going to help? Whether like it's the moms or the parents. You know, I always speak about moms, but like dads are out there like doing all the things. And I love that, even though my kid's dad isn't seeing anything on social media, but like others are. And my thing, especially when I became a mom and started creating more mom content, was just to make people feel a little less alone. Like, as a parent, like, it can feel really isolating, and it's scary and intimidating to like take your kids out to a splash pad or to go to the magic house, like with 2 kids as just like a single, you know, as a solo parent, but you can do it. And so like, that is always my goal, is to like help make it a little bit more accessible, like help people say like, okay, yeah, I could do that. Like, I could take my kids to the park by myself. Like, it is intimidating. And I always tell people like, it might go terribly wrong, but like, okay, it's just one day. Then you just like go home and put everyone down for a nap and
refresh,
you know, sit and stare at the wall for a little bit
and question your life. Like, my wife's going to be mad, but like, she cried the other day and she's like, it was a hard day. And she just is like, I'm like, I mean, I haven't cried, but I felt like I feel like I'm a bad parent because I can't soothe my young one.
Yeah.
But my wife can. But
I've cried so many times in the last month. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Well, I saw the video of you like working in the car, and I'm sure that was stressful
God,
because then he's like, okay, like I could already see the conversation in my head. Like, my wife would say this to me, we're like opposite. Like, I'd be driving, like, she'd be like, put your phone up, like, get that, do that, do that. And you're like, I'm like working on this hotspot. I got to like finish this reel. And he's like, he doesn't fully understand it yet, I'm sure. And that's fine. And that's okay.
And that's why, like, and I am trying to explain, I'm like, I know that this feels like I'm just like posting on my phone,
Or
but like, it is now my job.
Yeah. Or you're scrolling, which does happen. You're doom scrolling. You're like, okay, I need to stop. I need to focus.
100%. And that is something like, especially now that like my job is social media, essentially.
Yeah.
I am trying to be super conscious about using my phone around my kids, because that is, I think, something that we all as parents struggle with. And even if it's your job, like, I am trying to find those moments. Like, if my child is saying like, mommy, play with me. And if I can in that moment, like if it is not like life or death urgent email, which it's like mostly not, like, I'm going to say, you know what? Yes. Like, let me put it down. Now, if he asks me to play with him for the next like 2 hours, I'm like, okay, so like I have to do some work.
Yeah.
But like, it is hard, and it's hard to like find that balance of like putting your phone down and being on social media, and like, if both for like an enjoyment sake and a work sake. But whereas parents always trying to figure out balance. And I think parents, entrepreneurs, anybody can relate to this. I think about this analogy all the time. I read it somewhere, parenting blog, wherever, that you're like constantly juggling, but like some of those balls are glass and some of them are plastic. And some days you are going to drop those balls. And as long as you are not dropping the glass ones, which is like that your child is fed and safe, and that like maybe that day the glass ball is a really important work deadline, or maybe it's whatever, but like the plastic balls of like your laundry or
Mm-hmm.
cooking a homemade meal, like that's gonna drop and we're ordering pizza. Like
Yes.
it's, we got home from our trip and I was like, okay, I'm literally not even trying to open the fridge to see what's in there. Like
Yeah.
we're ordering emos. Like it's just, you got to find, there is no such thing as balance. You're just like constantly trying to figure out a better balance. Like you aren't going to like ever find balance as a
Emily
parent.
Fursella told me this. She says like balance is a scale. It's like some
Yeah.
days your work scale is way down, but then you even it out the next day with family. And then as
Right.
long as you kind of find like balance, she says balance is bullshit. There's no
Right.
such thing as balance.
No one's finding balance. Nobody is balanced.
But to your
We're
point
all
about
unbalanced.
the phone is like things are not as important. And I think the hardest thing about being a employee or anybody in 2025 is that I always have access to everyone.
Yeah.
Like Julia's recording this. If I wanted to get a hold of Julia on Sunday morning, I
Yeah.
can. But I don't because I respect their time.
Yeah.
But like I think that's the hardest part is I always can work.
Yeah.
No matter where I'm at, I can always get something done.
Yeah.
I've been using my Apple Note, the best app in the world, and just speak to it. If something comes up,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh my God, my notes app is
chaos. But
chaos, but it is also like
Yeah.
my most used app.
like if
on
I
my
email
phone.
you in the morning and you're like, okay, reply to Luke's email, then you
Yeah.
do it the next at night, then it's like
Yeah.
I need to make sure I reply at some point. But if
Yeah.
I don't write that down, it gets lost and then I forget about it.
Oh,
and
totally.
Then, so like the Apple Note, if just something comes up, I just put like, okay, reply to Marissa or order this for Marissa
Yeah.
for like whatever. Like I put my notes of like what I need to get for her. Like I need to get a gift for Marissa
Yeah.
for this. And I just
And
write
it's
it in my
not like
note.
making you like a bad husband.
Yes.
Like you need to write it down. Like no, like your brain is full of so many
Yeah.
things that like if I'm not writing things down,
Yeah.
like it is gone out of my brain.
Um,
I was just thinking about that as you talk about being sort of a boss and like the business you've created here at Bucket List is so incredible. Like I can remember Rennie's first story when you were starting out and
Yeah.
like to see what you guys has built is incredible.
Thank you.
But part of Post News is I'm working part-time with Jasper Paul, which is an incredible marketing and PR firm in town, and they are amazing at like valuing time and coming from news where yes, there were like off hours, but you were like always tuned into what was going on. And like if there was breaking news, like you could always be called in. Oh, a little less so once we're like if they're fully staffed and things like that. But yeah, if there's like a big breaking news story, like be prepared to answer your phone and like get to work, or at least be like aware of what's going on, answer your sources, things like that. And so coming out of news and like working with Jasper Paul, and they're like, oh wait, don't like work off hours. Like that's your time. I'm like, ooh, my time. That's an interesting thought. Like I feel like I've always been, and now I'm like, again, working way more just from like a personal perspective, my own personal brand, my own personal like work. But it is just funny to like
hear that,
find that there are companies that like really value your personal time. And like, I love that. I love finding like amazing companies that really value their employees and
people are different. Like I sometimes get distracted all day and then I have to work at night. So I did that to myself. I did that to myself. But like our employees are super great about like locking in and getting their stuff done. And like, you don't want this. Like this is like some people's first jobs. You don't want it to be their life. This isn't their life. They have another life.
And I think that was something that like I like news was my life, especially before I became a parent. Like I worked crazy like amounts of just like, because when you're on the news, if you think about it, like you're always looking for the next story. And like I was always in my phone, like looking at the like, oh, this could be a great story, or reaching out to somebody and like, would you like to tell me more about that? Like
setting up something the night before for the next morning.
Always. Like, I mean,
because it never stops. It
never stopped. Like in some ways, like once your story was on the air, like, okay, boom, you're done with it. But like there's a follow-up, like the next morning if I've got an email, or like maybe like I was looking for a response from a public official and they didn't get back to me the next morning. So like I'm like always, and like my biggest fear in the news, even though I knew my stories were accurate, like I knew I did my due diligence, like in my head, like I'd wake up in the next morning, like convinced I was going to get an email from someone being like, you spelled my name wrong, or like,
oh yeah, like something so small,
like,
but
so
like,
serious. It wasn't like,
but
I would like then go back, like, and again, this was like in my brain, but that's because I did care about accuracy and being fair. And there was always going to be someone that was mad about a story, like always. Like that comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like if someone on both sides of my story was angry, like that felt like I did a good job of like telling it straight down the middle.
Yeah.
And
There's
yeah,
always like an anxiety cloud over your
always
head
like it
because
was
it's
just
like
like
once you
always
put something out
it's
into the
important.
world,
Yeah.
it's on TV. You have no control what happens
Right.
after that.
And you know, we are telling big stories. We are doing like important work. But yeah, there was like this always stress. I think once I became a parent, it became less so because I realized like this is actually not that important. Like I have
I had that same
children
realization too.
to like feed.
Yeah.
Our 10 o'clock and our main anchor, Samantha Jones, she and I would talk about that all the time. Like
Yeah.
we are keeping our toddlers alive. Like this is not actually that big of a deal. Like this whatever email
That's
from
a liberating
someone.
feeling too. It's such
Yeah,
a
like,
good
oh,
feeling.
okay. Like
I used to get FOMO all the time. I was like, I want to be at every event. I want to be the guy. And now I don't go to any events. And I literally am at home. I'm a hermit. And like, I like my private life. I completely went private on all of our personal socials. I have close friends. I just want my friends to see my kids. And like, that was like my thing. I was like, I wanted to have my life. And then that's what I love about Bucket List is it's not me.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the most beautiful thing. And I think that is one thing that you eventually might come to tunes with is like, this is always me all the time. I always have to be on camera. I always have to get ready. I have to be vulnerable in order to like for my community. And I think those are the things that you do a great job with is like you care. You came from journalism, so you actually are putting out content that you're putting out stories that or content that you from a journalistic approach and like you're telling those stories. But I want to talk about St. Louis a little bit.
Yeah.
The STL Bucket List Show is proudly sponsored by Suede Dispensary. With 11 Missouri area locations, Suede does so much for the St. Louis community. We've been working with this team for a couple years back since medical was here, and we're excited to support their new product launches, events, and community initiatives. We couldn't be happier to work with this premier cannabis brand, and we're excited for them to sponsor the show. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. So the STL Bucket List Show are my favorite places. We started out writing blogs about things that we loved about St. Louis.
I remember you guys like I made a bucket list for you guys like way
we're bringing those
early
back.
on.
Yeah,
oh, nice. Loved those.
Those are fun. They were just every week. It was just hard to get people to send them.
Sure,
so we just got burnt out with it. But yeah, we need to bring those back. But the bucket list is not things we want to check off. We kind of reworked that of like the bucket list is things that we love. And I always think about of a point of view is if my friend's coming in town, where are the places I'm bringing them?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with your kids. So
family
bucket list. You've done a bunch of these. What are what's your ideal Saturday with the family? Let's start with a day in the life with the kids.
Day in the life with the kids.
Yeah.
So I think on the weekend, you got to start with the farmer's market. I mean, especially if we're talking summer. Nobody wants to do anything in the winter. It's lame. That's not true. But I'm not a winter fan. I'm a summer girl. So if we're talking Saturday, we're up so early. So we're getting coffee somewhere, probably Caldi's. That's our jam. We're going to the farmer's market. Tower Grove is just the best farmer's market in town. Like it is so great. We love it. We're going to eat there. My favorite breakfast burrito in town is there. It's Chris Briff's. I just want him to open up like a storefront so that he can just give me breakfast burritos every day. So we're eating at the farmer's market. We're probably playing at the playground. Summertime, the splash pad is going. We love that. If we got to get inside because it's hot and it's St. Louis, one of my favorite places to take my kids is the Missouri History Museum. They have a kids playhouse that is free and is so cool. There's so much to do in there. It is a great place to like burn off some energy, stay inside in the air conditioning in the summer or on a rainy day in the winter. We just love it. And again, it's free.
Yeah.
Same with the libraries. We love so many of our local libraries. St. Louis County has so many cool libraries to take your kids to, plus story times. Like we're always at the library. So that's another great place that we like to spend some time. And then if we're talking, lunch, if we've got to eat some lunch, I would say we're probably getting a sandwich on the hill somewhere. Joy's is a favorite. They've got a little kid sandwich. My kids usually just like pick it apart, eat the bread, eat the cheese, eat the turkey. But that's great. And then in the afternoon, evening hours, like we're going to a brewery. You know what? Some people do not think kids belong at breweries. I personally think kids have a place at breweries as long as parents are watching their kids. And I think that we have so many great family-friendly breweries. We love the Four Hands in Kirkwood because it has that huge outdoor area. If the train is coming through, it is literally like the most golden moment for your children that are obsessed with trains. But great food, great beer, like a space to move around. Like I love for Hans Kirkwood for our kids at night. And then you can stop at Clementine's next door and get your kids some ice cream.
That's a really good day. And those kids will pass out right when they get
Right,
home.
they're
You
asleep.
didn't mention a nap in there.
Like,
So
you know, theoretically there's a nap in there. Otherwise we're going crazy and bedtime is at like 7.
But yeah, Marissa's been going to the Missouri History Museum a lot. I went one time, and then story time at the Kirkwood Library. She went to a couple times.
love
and
the
she says the
Kirkwood
best is 30
one.
minutes. Boom, you're done. Like kids aren't like getting distracted, and like the
And you meet other
volunteers,
parents.
the volunteers and the other moms, and not just moms, but the other parents and grandparents that bring their kids there, like they're the same as you. They want to get their kids out to experience something.
Yes.
And they just want a little bit of like connection with other people. And
Yeah.
as a mom, sometimes like my wife's on summer break, like, yeah, it's so cool you get the summer off, but that's like 60 days in a row is just being a mom.
Yeah.
And then you just run out of things to do.
Totally. And it's especially like if you don't want to spend a ton of money, like
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you were sleeping on the libraries, like pull up the libraries, type in a day of the week. There is a story time, a baby play time, so many great activities that our libraries put on.
So babysitters. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know your family lives in St. Louis, so you're very blessed to have
Yes,
people
we are lucky.
nearby because I'm sure that like your parents love to watch the kids. I know your sister, I met her. She
Yeah.
seems to love kids. And
She
I know she has a
does.
baby on the way too.
Yep.
So that babysitter might be expiring pretty
I know,
soon.
right? I'm going to lose that bit of my babysitter. But yeah, we're so lucky. We've got family that love to watch our kids. We also have a great babysitter that we love, that we use when we don't want to like rely solely on our family. But yeah, if we're talking like a St. Louis
So
day.
how often do you go out? Like, I guess like when you go out, it's probably like us. Like it's either like one dinner real quick or like maybe an afternoon thing. But like most of the time it's only for like a 3 to 5 hour period.
Yeah.
But like, let's just say hypothetically,
If I get a full day.
your kids are over at your parents. Maybe like
It's a sleepover weekend.
Sleepover weekend.
Those are the best.
And you have a Friday night. Let's start Friday night dinner.
Okay.
And then you wake up Saturday. And
Okay.
This is without the kiddos.
Okay, this is solo.
You probably haven't done one of these in a long time.
We are overdue. Mom, if you're listening, this would be a great one.
Yeah.
Honestly, well, first off, let me just go with like, let's say we're going full in and like we're making this like a staycation. There are so many great hotels. Like the Chase is amazing. The Four Seasons, like we love doing a staycation,
Yes.
and those are great places. But if I'm thinking of like my ideal day, we're going to dinner at Louis. Like Louis is the best. Like it is our favorite. We love it. You can't go wrong. It is hard to get a reservation sometimes, but I tell this to people all the time. People forget that you can call a restaurant and see if tables are available. Like I love Resi. You know, I love making reservations online. It's super easy. But people forget that you can actually call up a restaurant and say, hey, do you have any tables available? Because sometimes people do. People cancel reservations all the time. There's always tables that they leave aside for walk-ins. So like call up a restaurant and say, hey, do you have a table? Sometimes they don't. But like my favorite, if we are like trying to get in at Louis, maybe we have a surprise date night and like they're like, yeah, we've got like a spot at the bar or we've got a spot at the pizza counter. I love sitting at the pizza counter at
20
Louis.
minutes. You're like,
Yeah,
see ya.
great, done. There. So we're going to Louis for dinner. We're probably getting some cocktails there, or we can go next door to Sasha's, get some wine. They have a great patio as well. Let's say we're doing a staycation. Maybe we're staying at the Chase. Oh my goodness. Okay, like I'm thinking breakfast. So Yellow Belly has a really great brunch.
Yeah.
I think it's just on Sundays or Saturdays. It's one of the days.
People don't
but
talk
like
about that much for
love,
brunch, too.
they have a great brunch.
Yeah.
Well, because Retreat, their sister restaurant, used to have the best brunch. Travis, if you're listening, I would love for you to bring brunch back at Retreat. But Yellow Belly's got a great brunch. My all-time favorite though is Southwest Diner. I love Southwest Diner for brunch. If we are going to lunch, again, we're still probably getting a sandwich somewhere on the hill, whether it's Adriana's, recently tried Evoldi's. I don't know if that's how you say it, but it's so good. So like we're also probably getting a sandwich on the hill, kids or no kids. If we've got time to just go like walk around Forest Park, like we got married in Forest Park, so we love Forest Park. So if you've got the opportunity to just like go walk around Art Hill, just like take in some nature, love that. We're probably also going to a brewery in the afternoon because we're brewery people. Modern.
Are you a beer girl? You
Oh
like
yes,
beer?
love
Okay.
beer.
Yeah.
We love Urban Chestnut. We love Modern. We love Side Project. I mean, there's so many great breweries, and there's like no shortage of great places. And there's like still like some that I've never been to, which is crazy. Most of them are like farther out west in St. Charles that I still need to try. We've probably been to everyone in the city, but so many great beers. And then like if we've made it through and like the kids are still there, we're probably picking up takeout somewhere and like going home and like sitting on the couch to watch a movie, which never gets to happen anymore with kids. So where am I picking up takeout from? I mean, we love Didi Mao. We love Nudo House. We live close to U City, so there's so many great restaurants on Olive. We like Wonton King is kind of our go-to for Chinese.
It's like that Asian food for takeout.
Yeah, we
Come on
do.
now.
So that's usually
Nudo
what we're
House
probably picking
slaps.
up. Oh,
Yeah.
we love Nudo House. We're probably picking up that and bringing that home for a little like chill takeout time.
Yeah. No, that was probably the best one we've ever done. That was like 7 minutes of content right there. How are we gonna cut that into a reel?
Oh gosh, right. All right, here's the speedy version of it. Okay. Best day. We're going dinner Louis. We're doing a staycation night at the Chase. We're waking up. We're going to Southwest Diner for breakfast. Lunch on the Hill at one of many delicious sandwich spots. We're spending the afternoon at a brewery, whether it's Modern, Side Project, Urban Chestnut, Four Hands, take your pick. And then we're getting takeout at home, probably Didi Mao or Nudo House.
Perfect.
Love
That
it.
sounds like the most lovely day. Well, Alexis, I appreciate you. Super excited for you to launch your new podcast, Bucket List Podcast Studio. We put a lot of energy into this. This has been my baby. I started this project the second my daughter was born, so that like these two projects are connected, and I can't wait to make memories here and create content that goes beyond social media. These podcast episodes are going to be listened to by your grandkids and all these different things. So that's how I think about it when I'm recording these. When you get tired, when you get like, annoyed with stuff, it's just like, okay, I'm doing this for other people. And I think that that's what keeps it. But What's New in the Lou podcast, follow Alexis Zotos. You also have a website we didn't talk about. I know you're putting a lot of energy into that too.
There's so many things, right? There's always something. But yeah, social media, Instagram is where I post pretty much everything. And you can find that there. On my Instagram is my fave, but TikTok, Facebook, all the places.
Yep. Sounds good. And we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, St. Louis, Brent Labowitz, Labowitz Law Firm, personal injury law firm here in St. Louis. Excited to be part of the STL Bucket List and sponsor them for their podcast. Just want to go ahead and say, if you ever need a personal injury lawyer here in town in St. Louis, give us a call, look us up. You get involved in an accident of any type at all, give us a call, free case evaluation. We'll try to walk you through the process.
Today, they rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on, they'll give you, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, the city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.